I was asked to do Celebrity Big Brother in Australia, and I was offered a huge sum of money, so I said yes. At the same time, Australia's locked down. Been locked down for 2 years. No one's allowed to leave. No one's allowed to come back. People can't go and visit their dead gran. People are stuck in the UK, can't get back to their own kids in their own country, but they're going to fly me in to do Celebrity Big Brother. And I'm like, righty, okay, yeah, sure. And I'm going to have to spend 15 days in lockdown, in quarantine, before I even get into the house, because I have to be, So over I go, and 2 police officers have to come on the plane to take me off the plane. And I have to be in a police van taken to my isolation prison. I am then escorted into the building. You have to be processed by a police team, taken up to the 26th floor by a member of the army and a member of the navy, and put in my quarantine room, prison. And they take the key. I'm not allowed a key. I'm not allowed to touch the front door of my room. I have to stay inside. When they bring my food, they're going to knock on the door. I have to wait 30 seconds. Then I'm allowed out. If I smell, I'm being briefed on this. And the thing that really grips me as someone who, purposefully should be military, is someone had to brief that guy briefing me for him to brief me with those bullshit. Someone had to stand there with a uniform and a straight face and say, 30 seconds, they're allowed to open the door. When they open the door, they're allowed to get their food. To get their food, they must have a mask. And I was like, I cannot deal with this level of bonkers. Day 2, 5 a.m, and I was like, and I lost my shit. And I went online, did a live, and then no one knew where I was. And I was like, I'm here in Sydney, and I'm in a country where no one's allowed to be, no one's allowed to come, people can't get to, and I frickin' went for it. And I gave it the whole, this is the tyranny of the people. You people need to rise up. I'm sitting in your country. I'm not vaccinated. I shouldn't be here. You are being pissed on. And I tell you, if I went back for a sleep, I woke up and Australia blew up. They said that they were cancelling my visa. I never even, they gave me the visa, and that I was now an illegal immigrant in the country. I never tried to get in. They brought me, and that I was going to be taken to an immigration deportation centre to be held. And then my electricity went off. Then they stopped delivering food. You're on your own, and they're taking away your light, your food. They're calling you an illegal. They're going to deport you. And it's like, holy, it got really, really dark. And so these wagons of police officers turned up like I was Hannibal Lecter, full breathing apparatus, all the rest of it, shoved me in a van and deported my ass.
Katie Hopkins has always thrived on controversy, but her brief and explosive encounter with Australia's pandemic policies reads like a case study in how hardline public health restrictions collided with celebrity privilege. In a recent retelling of her aborted appearance on Celebrity Big Brother Australia, Hopkins described an ordeal that veered from surreal to downright alarming. A police escort from the plane, an army officer leading her to a high-rise quarantine room, and a strict 30-second rule before she could retrieve food at her door. Her narrative touches on a nerve that Australia's government worked hard to defend during its 2-year border lockdown, a policy widely credited by health officials with saving lives, but increasingly criticized for its blunt, sometimes dehumanizing application. Hopkins' story encapsulates the tension between the state's promise of public safety and its capacity for overreach. Hopkins' description, police vans, soldiers escorting her to the 26th floor, full breathing apparatus during her removal, is melodramatic but revealing. Even if embellished, it reflects how visually performative Australia's enforcement had become. Border Force officers, military personnel, and state police were not just managing public health risk. They were projecting a message of control. In the polarized politics of the pandemic, that projection cut both ways. To supporters, it showed resolve. To critics, it looked like a dystopian overreaction. Hopkins' livestream from inside her hotel room tapped into that unease, especially among Australians still stuck overseas. Within hours, she went from a contracted reality TV star to an illegal immigrant slated for deportation, a transformation that played directly into her narrative of state tyranny. Hopkins may have lost her Australian contract, but her brief stay became a viral case study in the perils of hardline border controls. A reminder that even in democracies, emergency powers can create a spectacle of state authority that undermines the very legitimacy they are meant to defend.
Oh, Sarah, a Brit living in America,
yes,
is what you are.
Yes.
So I'm really interested in this perspective because this isn't a conversation that's being had. It's one of these very, very rare times. It's the main story in the UK and it isn't at all even remotely on the news agenda here in America. Why is that?
No, it's not, but it is interesting because it ties in, Bev, I think, and you'll have noticed since you've got here, right, the huge debate that's being had about free speech. I think what's happening here with the Brit card would absolutely have ramifications, and people up in arms about the potential for treading over the line when it comes to people's right to free speech and that First Amendment right. You would definitely be seeing something like that petition going through the roof with Americans would be absolutely opposed to it. I thought it was very interesting earlier you were asking one of the previous guests about, what would Donald Trump potentially think? I know that you've, got to know him a little bit since you've arrived here. He's very, very firm and bold and tough when it comes to things like illegal immigration and regulation, which is what this Brit card's being sold on.
Yeah.
But when it comes to what he'd do in this, it was very interesting actually. He signed Executive Order 14149. That was restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. And it ordered an investigation into whether federal actors have colluded with tech platforms to censor citizens. Now, okay, the Brit card is being sold as tackling potentially illegal immigration, getting your right to work, right to rent all in one place, making all that easier. But it's not actually going to tackle those problems. And actually, people who are looking at the free speech aspect of this and the big brother aspect of this are saying the potential here for government overreach, the potential for governments to have the ability to limit what we say, limit where we move, what we speak. That is just absolutely against everything the Americans stand for. And President Trump himself stands against that. So I think he would say, in his blunt way, this is just a bureaucratic gimmick.
Niall, what would Margaret Thatcher say? That's the question, isn't it?
Well, it's great to be on the show, and congratulations
on
the very successful launch of GB News here in the United States. And my former boss, Margaret Thatcher, I think would have strongly condemned it. She would have seen this as socialist big government overreach. It is truly Orwellian, I think, what Keir Starmer is doing. It's a mixture of 1984 and Animal Farm, frankly. It's all about control, really. It's nothing to do with illegal migration. And the British government under Keir Starmer has been an absolute disaster in terms of dealing with the migration crisis. And this is undoubtedly, it's a gimmick. And I think that this is also about really control of the British people. And I think the British people are going to push back strongly against it. And we're seeing the beginnings of that already.